Podcasting is an audio-first medium consumed on devices that have built-in microphones, yet the listening experience is reliant on eyes and hands. What would a voice-only listener experience look like? Hello and welcome to another podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. I shared with you a company called Vocalize that replaces vanity URLs and coupon codes from podcast advertising with memorable spoken phrases. If you missed it, go back and listen to that one. It's a fascinating concept, but it's really one that just makes sense. And today I want to drill down and explore that what-if scenario, if we were to put that into a wider practice. A world in which podcasters and podcast listeners live, where we're able to use voice commands to control the podcast experience, and only voice commands. But I want to be clear that what I'm about talking about here is pure speculation on my part. I am not a humans factor engineering major. I'm not an expert in machine algorithms or artificial intelligences. I'm just a guy with an overactive imagination who also wants to help make podcasting better. So keep that in mind as you follow along this insanity here. I'm going to first focus in on the idea of reserving or buying or leasing a memorable phrase for your podcast so that when it's spoken aloud with intent or an activation phrase, it takes people to your podcast. But it's even smarter than that. If the person who gave the voice command is already a listener of your show, they might experience your most recent episode or the episode where they left off. And of course, if they've already heard all of the episodes, then maybe the voice assistant is smart enough to let them know that there is not yet a new episode to listen to. Maybe it will suggest re-listening to a trending episode. Or maybe it suggests a totally different show that's still in your network, or a show where you, the host of this show, recently appeared as a guest. I mean, if we're going to pretend this thing is smart, let's make it smart, shall we? Now, I know this seems fantastical, and I'll grant you that today it is. But I don't think it always will be. As CJ mentioned, domain names are already an early version of this, where people, snapped up clever domain names, and memorable domain names, things like wannagetaway.com or tires.com. Or maybe they got weirder, like whoownswhoinpodcasting.com or iheartin.js. Okay, all four of those things work, which will lead those who know the secret code to their appropriate destination. A destination they can get to without having to know the actual brand name or the people behind that particular destination. You type in the secret phrase, you get to the destination. It's not really a stretch to speak the secret phrase tomorrow and get to the destination, right? So I think it's fun to think about what secret phrase you might use for your podcast. I mean, beyond your podcast name, obviously, sure. But like this show, for example, which the name of the podcast is already rather descriptive. But should I also register make podcasting better? Have I branded that phrase enough? And would I also need to buy make podcasts better? Sort of like buying common misspellings of a domain name. Should I also register Evo Terra's podcast and point it to this show? Or will the systems be smart enough to figure out whatever the phrase someone's looking for and then ask for clarifications? There's more to this future where voice assistants work really, really well, but with podcasting and could really deliver a better podcast experience. A truly voice-enabled podcast listening experience should let you navigate through the episodes of the show, and even within the episodes of a show. Look, we've got some hurdles to overcome. I get it, as some of us are using incredibly long titles that are littered with junk information like episode number and even the phrase episode number, repeating the show name in the episode description. Fine. But look, this is about possibilities, not about problems. So let's just talk about how nice it would be to interact with some sort of AI interface to help you find the right episode to listen to. Though I admit, the reality is my imagination on this is somewhat limited. I've spent way too many years optimizing podcast RSS feeds and working with web pages and podcast players to get the right information for, again, eyes and hands. But I suppose that figuring out an audio-only way to get through all of this requires someone, with a more nimble mind than my own. But I can picture what navigating within a podcast episode would look like just using common voice commands. I mean, think about start, stop, skip. These all seem like low-hanging fruit, along with volume up, rewind 15 seconds, or even get details. Implementing base-level commands like that in voice-only mode would solve the sudsy hands or back pocket problem of podcasting, or help ensure that I don't accidentally ride my bike into the canal when I'm trying to skip the post-roll and get to the next episode of the fiction podcast I'm listening to as I ride. Again, I'm just simply spitballing here. It is a lot of work to make this happen. I know. I also know we've had some early entrants in this space. Remember Auto Radio from 2014? Services like that either couldn't make it or pivoted their tech into new areas, as often happens in the world of startups. But that doesn't mean this will never happen. In fact, I think the bet is it will happen. And when it does, I think it will certainly make podcasting better. Trademark Evo Terra. Just kidding. With that, I shall be back directly with yet another podcast pontifications. Cheers!